Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. So we'll start in a few moments. We'll just give some time for people to join in. Once a couple of people have joined in, we'll get on with the session. So just to give you an overview for what we're going to discuss today, we are going to discuss web mapping in general, the way that web maps stand today, why you would need to use the power of the web to be able to publish your own maps, the kind of benefits it provides, and the kind of things that you need to take care of when you want to push out a really good web map. Talks aside, what we're going to also do is we're going to go through a couple of web mapping tools out there, namely Felt and Mapbox. So we will take out data that is freely available and we'll push this data onto these tools, try to style it, try to make it more sensible, and then we'll publish this as a web map. So while it's not necessary for you to follow along as we make this web map together, it would be good if you want to do that on the side. So if you've read the pre-setup email that is sent a couple of hours ago, if you haven't logged in already or if you haven't created your accounts on Felt and Mapbox, now is the time to do that. If you're not an OpenStreetMap contributor, I mean, it's not really a problem. It's not something that's mandatory. But since you're part of a mapping community, it's good to give back to the community in general, push back data to the source where everybody else has access to it, and then is able to use it for their projects. And you'll soon understand why it is important for us to be able to do this, uh, as and when we build this project. So you'll understand the quality of data that is available, the quality of data that you will require for your projects to be successful, and then what you would need to go on from there, uh, which would then help you build your entire map stack from the ground up, right? Right from pushing in the data that you need to a source that is available not only for you but for others to use, cleaning up that data, massaging it in a way that it makes sense, uploading it in whatever tool that you want to use, or even building a tool based on the data that is available, and then pushing it on the internet for everyone else to use. Right. So we'll just start in a few moments. Till then, make yourselves comfortable. Grab your favorite beverage by your side. Sit back and relax. This is not going to be a very intensive session as such, because the intended audience is not, say, your typical GIS people or anybody who has extensive development experience. The intended audience, as always, for GeoPune is everyone. Right? We are part of communities, a community that is spanning Pune. Some of us are just interested in maps. Some of us are designers. Some of us are hardcore GIS professionals. Some of us are developers who have developed tools. And the idea is to bring all of us together and express our thoughts in a way that is productive to the map community. All right. So we'll just start off in a couple of moments. Get yourselves ready. All right. Thanks. All right. So we're back. I hope we have quite a few people on here now. I believe there were some issues related to the audio. Please let me know if I'm loud and clear now. You can just let me know in the comments so that I can proceed from here. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a brief intro about what web mapping is today, what it means to publish your own web maps, uh, and why the terminology of the distinction between a map and a web map or a traditional map or whatever you call it really does not make sense anymore. And I'll give you a brief insight into the way that mapping is moving forward, which will also give you some idea of how you should structure your maps after this session. All right. So, what we're going to talk today is maps for the modern web. Correct. So, what do I mean by maps for the modern web? So the modern web is comprised of not just, say, your typical browser or your typical your mobile phones where you're opening up a map and then you're trying to go from place A to place B, or you're trying to search for an ATM nearby, or you're trying to just navigate to your office and trying to find the best route nearby, or the best route that you can take there, right? I'm not trying to say that those problems are no longer relevant. Those problems are very much relevant and they are still useful today. But the thing is that these are solved issues, right? Uh, so majority of the people over here will have, say, Google Maps installed on their phones, or maybe you're using something like if you're in India, and if you have one of the newer cars out there, you may have say Apple CarPlay, or your Android Auto, or even a native HMI with your Map My India interface or something like that, that you may be using for navigating from point A to point B. If you're more of the traditional sort, you may have your systems like Garmin, or you may have TomTom, or any of these other major car GPS navigation providers who will be taking you from one place to the other. Depending on the system that you use, you may be using Google Maps, or you may be using Apple Maps, or if you're one of those people who really believe in, say, uh, things that are built locally, you may be using something like the Mapple's platform to be able to search for the places that you want. But if you look at it, all of these are solved problems. And you never refer to any of these as web maps, correct? You never call a map that you're using as a web map in general. You just say that, hey, can you open up the map and search for the place that you want to go? Yeah, you open up Zomato and you are searching for a place that you want to go for dining today with your friends. Uh, you'll say, okay, let's reserve a table, and I just look where this place is. Is it nearby? How much time will it take for me to go there? You always say, let me open up a map, right? But if you really look at it, uh, do we really even need maps these days, right? Location data is pervasive. Location data is everywhere. Whether it's you who is moving around in a place, or whether your mobile phones that are just feeding information to some distant server that's being consumed by somewhere to build your online profile per se, so that targeted ads are given to you, or your, say, navigation software or any cab sharing software recording your favorite places so that you don't have to keep on searching for them the next time you have to book a ride, or any other use cases like this. So if you look at it, the actual interface of a map is disappearing. What is really coming through these days is the ability for, uh, say, location data to be consumed directly upon uh, any kind of platforms that consume it. So, which is why I don't know if you've seen that there's a podcast called Minds Behind Maps. It's one of my favorite mapping podcasts that I listen to once in a while. So, Steve Coast, who is a founder of OpenStreetMap, he gave a very interesting interview in the latest Maps, Mind Behind Maps podcast. And if you haven't, please do give it a watch, because Steve Coase founded OpenStreetMap way back in, I think, 2004 or 2006, something like that, with a view to remove data from the silos that it currently is. Right? if you look at it even today, even for India, the amount of open data that is readily accessible and that can be used is very less. The government has a lot of data that is closed behind certain servers or under bureaucratic processes. While that is slowly and gradually changing, with say the Survey of India publishing the village data set, for example, it is still not in a desirable uh, manner. It needs to be much better for us to be able to use it as a community. At the same time, you've got providers like Google, you've got providers like TomTom, you've got Here Maps and Apple, and so on and so forth. All of these people have their own maps, but none of it is available to the public. So when Steve Coase founded OpenStreetMap, the main objective was to be able to create an open source map of the world, where everybody can contribute towards their surroundings, uh, contribute towards it in, say, as a community, and bring value out of it. And the most recent examples, if you've seen, and since most of us, I'm assuming here, are from Pune, so since most of us are here from Pune, for example, you may have heard about the latest developments in Chandni Chowk, right? So the bridge was demolished in the middle of the night. And then that led to a lot of chaos. That chaos was there before the bridge was demolished. That chaos is still there today. But quite a few of us who live around the area have been actively contributing towards OpenStreetMap. Uh, and the benefit of that is that whatever is happening in that area, you get near real-time updates. And I'm not just talking about traffic. So to give you an example, Google didn't really know what to deal with that situation. So the day that the bridge was demolished, right? So the day that the bridge was demolished, Google just removed that entire area from its navigation interface. It didn't know what to do. It was all chaos. I'm sure that people must be complaining about their routing. So they just removed it. And for the next 3 or 4 days, people were being rerouted through, say, Shivajinagar and being sent to routes that were, say, an hour longer. There were other platforms who hadn't even updated the information and the bridge was still there, say about 2 or 3 days after the demolition took place. But on OpenStreetMap, the bridge was demolished within seconds, right? So the bridge, once it was demolished in its physical reality, it was removed from OpenStreetMap. So any engines that actually use live OpenStreetMap data or near live real-time OpenStreetMap data, any of those would have been able to route people properly through the Chandni Chowk area very properly because the community was so active, right? So this is a power that maps bring. And if you look at it, nobody really cared about, or in the scenario, the visual aspect of a map was not touched upon, right? So it's the fact that the underlying data needs to represent the real world that is there, and that's what matters, correct? So when you are designing maps for the modern world, you need to make sure that you understand what the end use case for this map is. Anybody can just pull out your typical map or use your Google JavaScript API, slap a couple of markers on it, and then just say, oh, hey, here's my map. But is that going to be of any use to anyone, right? So what I'm trying to say is essentially that whenever you design your maps, you need to be able to understand what they're being used for. So while the use cases or the examples that I gave essentially say that the visual aspect of maps is not really relevant, that may not be the case for all scenarios out there. The visual aspect is still very much relevant. And in today's session, that's what we're essentially going to explore. What we're going to do is we're going to take some data that's freely available, either as open data sets, or we're going to query OpenStreetMap data. We're going to download that. We're going to use that and push that to a software and then publish our own maps, right? So I said this at the beginning of the session also before a bit when I sent out that email a couple of hours ago. So if you have not logged into Felt, if you have not logged into Mapbox or OpenStreetMap, now is the time to do so. While you are not expected to follow through or follow along what I'm doing, you can use the information that I'm giving to be able to build your own maps on the side. You don't have to use the same data that I am pushing. You can query for your own data and you can build your own maps. But the advantage of following along as I'm doing or I'm building my own map, is that you may encounter certain issues, you may encounter certain problems, you may have ideas that you can use, or you can express those in the chat or on our Discord server, and you can get answers to them straight away, right? Uh, what we will do is to make sure that this is an interactive session and not just me speaking at you from through a mic and through a webcam. We will have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the session, essentially, once we have built our own maps. And after that, if there is sufficient interest, we can move on to the Discord server, where we have a live voice channel, which we can use to then talk to each other and try to figure out, or to just brainstorm ideas, right? So the way I see it is like the main session will be over at around the 45-minute mark, after which we can then have open discussions. All right. So on to the next thing. So essentially, what is it that makes a map work, right? If you imagine a map, in a visual typical map, you can probably think of a couple of different things, right? You will imagine that this map will have roads. You may imagine that this map has buildings. You may imagine that this map has other things like grasslands, swimming pools, and other more artificial constructs of the human mind, which say would be your administrative and political boundaries, which nobody has ever seen physically, but they exist to be able to manage the earth better, I'm assuming. So these are the things that you would probably see on a map. But the question is, do they make a map work? Do they really make a map work for you? So a typical map would show data, but the user and so basically how the user interacts with that map is what provides the real value. So can anyone put in the chat of what you're seeing on the map or on the screen right now? I mean, you can see that it's a map, but can anybody give me any guesses about what you're trying to see over here? Right? These are roads. Right? Streets. All right. Any other guesses? Okay. So all of you are not entirely wrong, but not entirely correct either. So while you are seeing our roads, what you're also seeing is something else entirely. And I'll tell you that in a bit. Just give me a second. All right. So what you're essentially seeing is, these are GPS traces. So has anybody of you used the application called Strava? So basically, Strava is what it is a app that allows people to record the activity that they're doing, right? So it could be you may be running around, you may be cycling around, you may be traveling from place A to place B. And what Strava does is it records these GPS traces, puts them on a server. So Strava has millions of users across the world, right? So what they have done is essentially they have created a heat map of all of the traces that they've got, which have been anonymized and then put overlaid on top of, say, OpenStreetMap. And that is essentially what you're seeing over here. So what you see is the areas where people have been traveling quite frequently, and areas which have not been traveling quite frequently. So the brighter areas are where the most number of users have been going around. The areas which are, say, darker or deeper red, those are the areas where say the number of people who have been traveling is less, right? But if you look at it, this in itself is not really giving you much information. So, what do you really do with this information? Uh, like, okay, it looks nice, it looks cool, uh, but beyond that, yeah, you wouldn't really be able to derive any value out of it, right? But the interesting thing is, you can actually use this information for a variety of use cases. So, can you tell me? Now, this is something that probably people who are in Pune will be able to answer. Can you tell me what you're looking at right now? Can you tell me which area in Pune you're looking at? Any guesses? Your wildest guesses about say what area in Pune you're looking at on the screen right now? Okay, Mota, Shivajinagar, Talzai. Talzai is close. Pashan close. So what you're essentially looking at is the Veta Tekadi. So for those who are not in the know, Veta Tekadi it used to be it's a hill in the middle of Pune. It's in the western part of Pune, which used to be a quarry. This quarry has since been disused for a very long time, and since then, through efforts of reforestation and general community efforts, now this is transformed into one of the greenest areas in Pune. So what you're seeing right now is essentially traces of the people who interact with that quarry, right? So in the middle, you can see that there are places where people are not going, which is essentially the actual quarry itself, which is now filled with water. And the brighter parts are where people go along the trails. So if you look at it, what you're seeing is where, what are the areas along that quarry that people interact with the most, right? And if you look closely, you'll see that because the underlying base map over here is a hybrid satellite image with OpenStreetMap roads on top of them, quite a few of these traces are not covered, right? There's nothing on the map that states this. So, which means that what you're getting is an insight onto how the local residents or are interacting with that particular feature. They're interacting with that particular that quarry. Where are they coming from? How do they climb up there? Once they go up there, where are they going next? Right? And a lot of these trails are not present on OSM. So this data is there, but it's really not there. So this gives an input to how you can use data for how the local residents or the users of a particular area interact with that particular map feature or that particular location to be able to derive value from it. Right. So this is what I mean by whenever you're having maps for the modern web, they are no longer just limited to displaying map on a typical base maps. They're not about talking or not just putting roads here and there or buildings here and there. Your modern web map or your modern map for the web deals with the data and how users interact with that data to be able to provide certain inputs, right? Uh, so we'll pause over here. If anybody has any questions or anything that they would like to highlight before we move on to the next segment, which will be diving into directly into how we can take data and go about publishing our own map. So I think one, you asked a question about what is Strava. So like I touched upon it, Strava is an app that is used by millions of users worldwide. So this app records your activity. So say you're going for a trek or you're going cycling in the evening. So you want to be able to record this activity and this so where you're going, how fast it took for you to get from point A to point B, what kind of activity you're doing, and probably how much distance you covered. So all of this information is recorded and you can share it with your friends socially. But at the same time, because it is an app, all of this data is being recorded by Strava. They anonymize this data and they produce heat maps like this. So What I'll do is I'll share a link on the chat over here so you can actually look at this heat map yourself. Yes, Rituja, it is like so there are multiple apps out there that do exactly this. So you've got say the Google Fit app, you've got Fitbits, so you've got the Apple Health app. So all of these apps essentially do the same thing. What they do is they take your data, they take your traces along what you're doing, and it gives you an idea of how your data is being used by all of these companies, right? Whether or not you're allowing it, or whether or not you actually know about it, your data is being used. Um, and while you may think that it's being used for wild purposes and it's a massive invasion of your privacy, if you look at it, this is how you can benefit from this data as a community and use it to improve the world around you, right? So we'll just take a short break over here. You can have your 5 minutes break. You can prepare a hot beverage. Make sure that you're logged into your Felt and Map box, and then we'll return with a live workshop of creating your own map. Okay, thank you. All right. So we're back. So for the remainder of this session, what we're going to do is I'm going to switch back to pure audio so that all of my screen is visible, and then you're able to understand and follow every single thing that I'm doing. So what you're looking at right now is an application called as Felt. Uh, let me know if you're able to see my screen properly so that I can proceed from here. All right. Okay, so Felt is one of the newer applications out there which help you, or the newer platforms rather, out there that help you make your own maps. We had alluded to it in a couple of sessions ago in either the August and September session. I don't know if anybody of you have had the time to be able to explore this and see what it's all about. So just with a, I don't know, maybe a thumbs up emoji in the chat, can you let me know if any of you have used Felt before? Okay, it's a no from Yam. From Niket, no. All right. Okay, so if you've only used QGIS and ArcGIS, I guess you're in for a treat today, because I mean, there's nothing wrong with using desktop GIS software, but if you look at it, once you're done with analyzing any data that you're working on, what do you do next, right? So generally, in a more traditional organization, what you would do is you would print out PDF maps of these and then give it as with your typical layout, with your north arrow and your legend and your title and whatever else that constitutes a traditional map, and that's pretty much it. Apart from that, there's not much that can be done with it. And the main drawback of using typical GIS software in a more broader sense is that it is built by GIS folk for GIS folk generally. So even with the dashboards that you build, say using ArcGIS Online, they're generally the ultimate audience for that is someone who is from a more statistical or a GIS background and who's able to understand and perform certain interactions with the map to be able to derive value. There are exceptions, of course, if you use ArcGIS, for example, to build story maps where you're trying to uh, tell a story or go from a transition from one place to the other. Uh, that is more towards the general audience, but in all honesty, it's a very half baked product, and there's only so much that you can do about it, and which is why it opened up the doors for a lot of other players out there to be able to bring in their platform that allows the general audience to use their maps or uh, to build their own maps in a very easy way. um, and the idea is that you don't need to be a GIS person to be able to do this. You just need to be a bit computer literate and you need to have an idea in your head. And that's all you really need to be able to make your own map, right? So essentially, that's what we're going to do today. So Felt is one of the newer players out there, like I said. And the idea behind Felt was to make maps that are easy for everyone to use. So I'm just going to go and log in so that you don't have to keep on seeing this GIF. Uh, so what you see in front of me is a bunch of maps. Some of these I have made, some of these other people have made. So we'll just walk through a couple of these maps and then we'll go around to actually making our own map, right? If you have already logged in at your end, you're feel free to look around or explore, or even jump into making your own map. So what I'm going to show you is essentially a broad spectrum of the kind of maps that people have made using Felt so that you get an understanding of what this is meant for. And the reason why I want to do this is because I myself was skeptical at first when Felt came out. I felt that it really did not have a place in this world, and what it is trying to do has already been solved. But over months of using it, ever since I got it during the beta itself, I got an invite for the beta, and after a month of using it, I was convinced of the value that it provided. So, for example, this is one of the first maps that I came across. In fact, this is made by someone else, not by me. So, what they're essentially showing is how they go around on their morning runs or their evening walks, and they do this using their dog, right? So they take their dog for a walk, and this is the path that they follow. So look at how well it is thought out, and look at how useful it would be for someone who's visiting this particular area. So if you're going over here and then you're traveling, it's not something that's, say, next door to your house. You'll first want to look for parking spaces, right? So what they've done is essentially uh, filled up all of the parking spaces that you may find parking in, so that you know where you can park your car, where you're taking your dog in, and then go onto the trail itself. And probably they have a few, say that's it's a cafe that they like to go to, so they've just marked it over there. So the little dog icon says that this is where the trail starts. Now this is not an official trail, right? This is just a trail that they follow and they're showcasing to the world. So what they have done over here, this is actually a road network, right? So they have generated, say, a polyline or a route based on the road network underneath. So they have said that this is how you're supposed to go, and this is supposed how you are supposed to end up. Rutuja, to answer your question about whether this is similar to ArcGIS story maps, the answer is yes and no. While it does have quite a few similarities to story maps, the point is that you can do a lot more with this uh, than what you would be able to do in ArcGIS story maps. All right, so then you have these little arrows and they're annotated, showing that how you can go from here. Now look at this: beware golf balls, right? So in a typical map, you won't have this. Now, this is a golf course. There will be people playing golf over there, so that those golf balls they may come flying across the place. If you're walking your dog, that dog may get distracted. So that's something to watch out for, right? So there are multiple gates out there, which are sort of kissing gate. I've actually no idea what this is about, but you get the idea, right? So then you can go left and you keep following the path, and then you keep on following the path until you reach a farm. Now, that's where they say caution cows. Like, imagine, I don't know if any of you have ever walked a dog before, but dogs tend to get really excited when they see other animals, right? So if they see a cow, if they see other dogs, if they see anything that's around them, they tend to get really excited, and then that's why I'm saying that's okay. There are cows over there, so you may face issues over there, and then okay, you keep on following this path, you keep on going here, and then this is finally you end, and then you go back to your own path, and then you can go out from the way that you came. Right. So this is the most basic example of a map that someone else has done, and you know that this is not done by a GIS person, because a GIS person would approach this problem in a completely different way. But the point is that this has been done by someone who wants to show how to interact with this particular area, with this particular geography. And they've done that very well. Because if I show this to anyone, like anyone who even remotely understands how to look at a map, right? We're not even talking about a map on the web or anything, just how to look at a map, they would understand this. They would understand where to go, what to do, what to be aware of. And that's it. And that makes it a very functional map, right? So this is what we're talking about. This is data about data. This is telling you information about the underlying geography in that area and how you can use it to achieve a certain purpose, which in this case is walking your dog, right? It's the most simplistic use case out there. So yeah, so now this is about, say, the most simple application that we have. We'll go back to a more complex or a more typical GIS application that they had set up. So this was essentially set up by someone who wanted to understand, say, site suitability for a particular store or interactivity. So what they've done is they've used a hex grid in the city of Milan, and they've divided each of those, although they've classified or they've visualized each of those hexes based on the population in that particular area, and say locations that they can set up their store in, or probably existing locations, right? So going back to the question which, say, Rutuja asked, where this is the same as story maps. So the answer is yes and no. So while the previous map was, say, very similar to what a story map would do, this map is more inclined towards a typical GIS map, correct? So going back now, the latest map that I built with this is, for example, with the Chandni Chowk example that I give, right? So because I live in the area, a lot of people kept on asking me, okay, what's going on? Can I go there right now? I'm thinking of heading towards Mulchi. Do you think it makes sense to head up Chandni Chowk right now? Can I go now? Should I wait? What's going on? Or people, a lot of my relatives, for example, stay a bit more in the core areas of the city, and then if they want to come to my house, they don't, say, in Bavdan or in Bane, they don't know how they should be going about it. So then they used to ask me, I was like, okay, how do I come there? Because like I said, Google Maps had just turned off navigation in Chandni Chowk for about 3 or 4 days. So if you try to come, it would give you a route all the way from Shivajinagar to Pashan to Bavdan and so on. So then that's why I built up this map. I just, I just made a few annotations, and then I'd say that there are two ways that you kind of come from Kothurut to, say, Bavdan. One is that you take the ramp towards NDA. There's a U-turn over there that you need to take. Then you follow that road after taking the U-turn. You'll have to stay left and go to Port Road because the bridge has been demolished. So then you follow Port Road, then you take a U-turn again. Once you take the U-turn, then you take the exit towards Bavdan, and then there you are. Or if you miss the exit ramp towards NDA, so then what you can do is just join the highway. Once you join the highway, take another exit ramp, go to the roundabout, and then follow Port Road, and then just go back to Plan A or Route A, right? So apart from that, one of the major points that I know about is that there are certain areas where traffic does get choked, or there are cars which, or many cars are trying to go through the same points at the same time. We've got lanes converging and so on. So there are choke points to be aware of about, so that you can then estimate the amount of time that it would take you when there is no navigation interface available for you to use. So those are also something that I marked upon. So this now gives you an ability to navigate even then your navigation system is offline, right? So, and this is typically how you would use a traditional paper map. You would want it to, you would want to interact with your environment and find your way around it, right? Uh, so this is the last use case that I want to show that was built with Felt. So what we're going to do now is we're going to build our own map using Felt. So if you want to build along with me, now is the chance to get started. So if I click on new map, this is what I see, right? Because I'm in Pune or it's taken my geolocation, it'll show me where I am. But if you're elsewhere, it'll show you where you are, or you can choose any area in the world, right? Uh, so there are a couple of tools that I get over here. Is one is if I want to put in pins, I'll be able to put in a particular pin. I'll be able to choose what icon I want to add, and so on and so forth, which is your typical way to annotate. It's not something I want right now, so I'll remove it. If you want to generate a route from place A to place B, you'll be able to do that. You can choose which method you want to use to do this. So you can choose driving, cycling, walking, or flying. So say if I want to go from place A to place B, right, it's generated route. And now this is available for me as, basically a line that I can use to extend or do whatever with. If I want to style this, I just have to select it. Need to give it a name, say route 2. I don't know for whatever reason. I want to just give it a color. I can still choose the mode of transport once I've done it. So in case I just accidentally clicked on driving instead of walking, I can still do this. And if I want to show the distance that it would take, I can do this as well, right? But for today's this thing, I don't want to really do a route either. This is just for showcasing. If you want to upload an image, you can do that as well, right? So if I just take the previous example, I can say that, so for example, a use case where this would be important is, say that I am trying to show a route from say east of Pune to west of Pune, or you want to just show a scenic route that you took to on a vacation. Then you might just want to take a photo and attach it on the way, just to show what this particular road looks like, right? So on a street view level. So that's what you can do. If I have added a bunch of features, or I can see if I've clicked on the clip option, I can clip buildings that I just want to extract, right? So all of this is OpenStreetMap data. They've rendered it using Mapbox. So if I just want to extract a few buildings from here and there, I can do that. I can choose layers that I can add. Now, people who have used stuff like ArcGIS Online before will be familiar with this. There are a bunch of layers that are available. Many of them are currently in the US or Europe, but some of them are available across the world. Places or the layers which are available across the world are probably ones that come from OpenStreetMap. So for example, if I add the helipads layer, I'll be able to see all of the helipads in the world. Now, you may think that, look, I know there are a couple of places in Pune that helicopters can land on, and this is not the only helipad. Now, this goes back to point A, where I discussed in the beginning of today's session, where I said that if you know that a location exists and you don't, and it's not shown on the map, go ahead and add it, which is why you need an OpenStreetMap account, because you have the power to do that. You don't have to be caught in bureaucratic processes to be able to do this. So then you can just add your own layers or your own data to OpenStreetMap. All right. So anyway, I don't want any of the layers today. I want to add my own layers. So has what we're going to do is we are going to query OpenStreetMap for data. All right. So for this, what we're going to use is something called as Overpass Turbo. So Overpass Turbo is an online tool that you can use to query data, right? Uh, so for today's use case, what I want to try and do is I want to build I want to show all of the public transit facilities that are out there in Pune, uh, which I can say there are two, right? So one is either if you want to go by public transport in Pune, you will either go via bus or you will go via whatever is completed in the metro. So a lot of people have been quite active and some in the community as well to actually map out the metro parts of it which have been constructed, parts of which have not yet been constructed, right? So then, what I'll do now is, if you can see, I've mapped my current bounding box to Pune, and then I want to query this. So what I'll do is, I'll just go to the wizard, and I will say that uh, I want to extract the metro. But now I have faced with the problem is that I don't know uh, how do I identify a metro, right? From the data itself. Now, if I go there and if I know a particular area, I can see that this particular whatever this is, it has been that's a metro and that's what I want. But how do I get this information from the map? So obviously, I need to query for that data. How do I understand what I need to query for? So then I just open up, say, OpenStreetMap. Then I'll go there. I'll go to any section of, say, the metro. I'll say query features. All right. So now I can see that, say, this bridge.aqualine is that's looks like what I want, but the aqualine only extends till here, this particular feature, and probably the other features are something that I want as well, right? So now I know that this aqualine will only extend for a particular stretch of the metro. There may be other things like the red line or the purple line, which I also want. So do I keep on querying for aqua, red, purple, and just hope that people have tagged it as that way? No, right? So what I need to do is I need to find out a common denominator that I can use. So I can see that over here the operator is called as Mahametro, and the railway is tagged as subway. Uh, at the same time, there's something in Wikipedia that I can use as well, which says that this is Aqualine. So just to confirm my theories, what I'll do is I'll go to another section of the metro, which is probably being constructed at this moment, and just try to query that feature to see if the same tags apply over there, right? So I'll choose the metro line, which is now from, say, Shivajinagar till around Baner. And I'll say that, okay, yes, now it's proposed subway over here. Railway is not yet constructed, so it's not a railway subway, railway is construction. But system is Pune Metro and operator is Pune Metro. So now what I can say definitely is that the operator tag is something that I can use because the operator tag over here was Maha Metro, the operator tag over here is Pune Metro. Right. So what it means that if I search for anything that is tagged with Pune Metro and anything that is tagged with, say, Maha Metro, I should be able to get the metro network. So what I've done is I've previously just constructed a query over here. So what it means is, so the way is equal to Pune Metro or way equal to Maha Metro in this particular bounding box. That's what I want to extract. Now, if you're new to OpenStreetMap, just a little refresher over here is OpenStreetMap is constructed of nodes, ways, and relations. Nodes are your points, ways are your lines, and relations are essentially relations, how these points and lines interact with each other to form either a line segment, a point, or a polygon, right? So I've constructed this query out of this where it'll say that within the bounding box, search for system equal to Pune Metro, operator equal to Pune Metro, or operator equal to Maha Metro, and give me all of the features. But make sure that you're giving me ways and not nodes, correct? So I'll just run this query. All right. Right. So what it has given me is all of the data that has been tagged as a metro in the city of Pune. Right. So now that it has been highlighted, I need to extract it. So I'll just go here. I'll export. Now, when I say export, it will give me a few options to be able to export a few things. I can even build a map out of this straight away, so you don't even have to do anything else to be able to do this. Uh, but what I want right now is to use it in Felt. So what I'll do is I'll just export it as a GeoJSON that I can use later. I'll say download. I've created this folder for today's session, so I'll just say Pune Metro. I'll save it as a GeoJSON, and that's it. Now what I'll do is I'll go back to my Felt map and I will upload my own data. Right. So if I click on upload, it'll give me an option. So this is some of the data that I've already have. So I'll go to Pune Metro and I'll say, now it gives me two options over here. One is as a data layer or one is as an element. The difference between these is, if you remember a few of those maps that I showed, say the dog walk map or the map for Chandni Chowk, the dog walk map had certain annotations in place where there are cows over here, or there are there are directions of how you should go, or their favorite cafe. So those are the elements, whereas a data layer is what I really need, which will allow me to interact with it in a way that I require in terms of styling or so on and so forth. So I'll select data layer instead of elements and click on create. So now it will upload the GeoJSON that I have to Felt, and it will process it. All right. Okay, so if I click on zoom to fit over here, it's given me all of this information. Now, straight off the bat, you can see that some of this may not be right, but we can investigate that later. For the purposes of this session, we're just going to use this data as is, because the importance of this is not to figure out and correct data. The main focus of this session is to be able to develop our own web map, right? So a few observations straight off the bat is, you can see that by default it has given it a color, and then it has identified the ways that constitute all of these, and then given them the IDs. Why has it done this? Is because if you remember in the overpass query, we said that we want all the ways. So all of the way IDs are something that it has given us. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to style this data to be able, so that I can make more sense of it, right? So I'll just click on style, and now I get more data. So it's just taken the name of the file that I've given. So I'll just say lines. Now I'll try to give it a different color. So I don't want all of my metro lines to be of the same color, very obviously. So what I'll do is I'll just say color by category. And then I'll need to figure out what I would use to differentiate it, right? So then probably what I'll say is I want to color it by name, or maybe I want to color it by, yeah, I think the name would work, right? So I'll just color it by name. So now what you can see is you get some different information already, right? So because this aqua line has already been constructed, and the stations that have been built along this have also been highlighted as well, right? So the blue, the purple, the orange, and the red. While the rest of the line, because it's still being constructed, there are no stations that we've gotten. We've only gotten the actual metro line that is in place. So we can use this to our advantage as well. Now, while we have gotten each of them to be of a different color, what we can now do is we can customize it in a way that we want. So all of this aqua line, I want it to be in an aqua color. So I'll just give it an aqua color. And then every other station along that, maybe I just want it to be an aqua color as well. So if I click on this, I know that this is ideal colony. I find ideal colony. Then what is this? This is null stop. So null stop, I'll say aqua. And then the last one is Garware College, which I will also mark as aqua. All right. So everything in aqua is something that I'm really concerned about, is because that line has been built. Everything else I don't really care about right now, so I leave it the way it is. Now, the one problem I still face is that these labels are not something that I want. I want these labels to say state what line this is. So I'll just uh, I'll go back to the label by section, and I will say name. All right, and there you go. So now you've got aqua line. Wherever there are stations, it's telling me what station it is. And the rest of it is as it is. So people have said line 1, metro 2, line 3, whatever it is. Uh, I mean, all of us, I mean, there may be certain things that are triggering you right now because you know that this is of a particular, no, this is purple line, this is red line. So this is your chance to go back into OSM and modify it in the way that it's supposed to be, right? So now this is your basic labeling. There are a ton of other things that you can do. So you can, change the opacity of the things that are drawn so that it doesn't look as jarring, and you can see that it melds more into the map. You can change the weights of the labels. You can change the size of the text, and if you really want, you can just align the label to be of the same color as the actual feature itself, and then you've got your legend, right? So that's it. So now I do have a map of um, all of the metro lines in Pune, right? So one of the main questions on discussions that I've been having, or the residents of Pune have been having, especially for those who have traveled along the Aqua line, is yes, it starts from say Vanas and it ends up in Garware College. But how do I even get to the metro? Metro? Do I have enough parking over there? Generally, for any urban development where there's a subway or a metro station or a metro is involved, you have a network of connecting buses, and these connecting buses feed into the metro station so that you can go from wherever you are to where the metro station is and then successfully get on the metro. So now I want to see is what is Pune's preparedness for to be able to reach any metro station via public transport. And since we already established that the only available public transport apart from a metro in Pune is a bus station or the bus network, let me go back to OSM and try to fetch that. Right. So again, now I know that there are bus stations all around, but I don't know how to fetch that. Right? So what I'll do is I'll just query this feature again. I try to figure out, okay, so it's called a bus stop. So what is it called? It's either bus is a yes, or public transport is stop, or maybe what I can do is highway as bus stop. So I think this is something that will give me what I want. But let me just confirm that. So I'll just click on another bus stop over here. I'll just say bus stop as Vanas Corner, and I'll say highway as bus stop. All right. Just a word of note, there may be some background interference coming my way because there's some construction work happening nearby. So you may get some disturbance. And if you see that, I apologize for that, but I hope that my voice drowns whatever background noise that may be coming. All right. So back to what we're trying to do now. We know that highway is bus stop. So then we can go back to Overpass Turbo and build our query that way. So I'll just go to wizard. I'll just say highway. You need to put quotes wherever there's a space involved. So otherwise you won't get what you need. Because if I just say highway equal to without any quotes, I say bus stop, it's not going to be able to build that query. Okay, so I've built this query. I'll run it. Interesting. Why has it not worked? Oh, it's bus underscore stop. My bad. So we'll build this again. So then I don't need the quotes anymore. There you go. So now you have every single point in Pune which is marked as bus stop, right? So now again we'll export this data. We'll export it as a GeoJSON because it's the easiest. You can use anything that you want. There's nobody stopping you. So I'll just say bus stops. Stop. Let's say stops 2. And there you go. So now I'll go back to Felt. I'll upload my data again. I'll say bus stops 2. I'll say data layer, and I'll create this. Okay. So now I have got a bunch of bus stops from all over Pune, or any other points that essentially the points that have been tagged as a bus stop, right? So again, now this is not giving me the information that I want. It's saying that it's a node and it's giving me the node ID. Nobody's going to understand, say, to go to, say, Vanas, you need to take a bus to node 2870389547. Right? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't map in with the real world. So let us go ahead and change that. So I'll just say, I don't want it to say bus stops, and I'll just say bus stops in Pune. I change the name to bus stops and not bus stops too. I don't really want to change the color right now. Maybe I'll just keep it a single color and change it to a different. Yeah, let's make it red so that it's more visible. Let's change the style of it, size of it. But the main thing that we are going to use is the label, right? So what we'll do is we'll see what all fields are available to us. And we'll choose name. Okay, there you go. Now, the catch over here is that some of these may be, say, bus stops for the Pune municipal transportation, but it could be bus stops that are used for private players as well, or state transport as well. So this is a mixture of the two. So if you're really going to use this as a project, you may want to refine your data further. You may want to do some field study and try to figure out or ground truth. So, but anyway, it's given me what I want, right? So if I want to say ride the metro from right from the first one, which is say your Vanas, and from Vanas I want to go to um, say Garware College because this is a metro that has been completed. I can either go for the Kachra depot or the Vanas corner bus stop over here, or then if I want to go the other way, then there's a bus stop near Garware as well, which I can take a bus to and get off and then get on the metro. Right. So essentially, this forms our first web map. Right? Before we move on to the next, any questions so far? Okay. All right. So this was we've created our map. Now let's just share it to the net. Now we'll say that this is a map of the public. I'll share that and I'll say share it to the web, allow public editing. So for the purpose of this, I'm going to allow this and I'm going to copy the link and I'm going to share it in the chat. Now you're free to play around with this map the way you want. If you want to add any data to it, play around with it, annotate it, go around, go wild. I'd be interested to see what you have to offer, but try not to vandalize the map. All right, this is a community map that we have made today in GeoPune, so let's be proud of it. What I would encourage you to do is after the session ends or the weekend or a coming week or whenever you want, you feel inspired and you want to make a map and publish it on Felt, please do that. You can share it on the Show Your Project channel on our Discord server, or if you face any issues, you can always put it on Discord and then we'll try to resolve your issues or help you build your maps. Or if you have any tips or anything that you want to show, you can do it there. Or if you're going to publish any maps on social media based on what you saw today, please use the hashtag GeoPune, right? it's just it's not to promote a market community as such. It's because I'd like to see what our members are up to, right? So we can all share our stuff with each other and be inspired, take inspiration from the stuff that we have made. All right. So the next thing that we'll move on to is a bit different, where uh, we will try and look at Mapbox and try to visualize a different kind of open data. Now, the difference between Felt and Mapbox over here is that Mapbox gives you a studio where you can build your own map style. It's not giving you all the tools or an interface that a user can use straight out of the box. You can still look at it as a map, you can still visualize it. But the advantage is that you can build something that is truly unique, something that is visually striking, and then consume it within your own map or an application. You can even import it as a layer, as a tiled layer in your QGIS, for example, and use it as a base map. Right. So we'll go on into Mapbox next. So just as a raise of hands, or any emojis or any way that you want to communicate with me, can you put it on the chat if you used Mapbox before in any shape or form? All right. Um, so basically, Mapbox is it's basically started off as a simple mapping library, a JavaScript mapping library that was built uh, to build web maps. Right. So it started off very small, and the idea was just to build a lightweight mapping library or a framework for people to make their own web maps. And since then, it has grown by leaps and bounds, where they provide everything right from the mapping library is still there, but they've morphed into a more WebGL based library that people can use, so that they can use a canvas layer in browsers to be able to show stuff like vector tiles and vector data a bit better. They have mapping interfaces. For example, if you've ever driven a BMW, say an M5, it has the HMI or the navigation SDK that they use is a Mapbox SDK. So yeah, so they are essentially now a competitor to a lot of the major players out there in terms of mapping, and they are one of the largest contributors or sponsors for OSM, and all of the map data that we're going to style now, they are it's all OSM data. All right, so if you log into Mapbox, this is essentially what you'll see. So I've worked on it quite a bit, so there's already stuff in there. But essentially what we need to do from here is, from here you go to Studio. Right, so Mapbox Studio is what we use to create our own web map. So here you will see a bunch of tiles and data sets that are already in place. So styles are essentially just base map styles that if you have already made some, you'll see them, or this is where you can make a new one. Tile sets are essentially large data sets that we can use, and then they're served as vector tiles in your map. So especially say if you've got data that is huge in nature. So I don't know if you've seen it, but if you build any web-based application out there, and then if you try to add a lot of data, say in GeoJSON directly on the front end, it's going to lag like anything, because it's going to consume your memory, and then your application becomes laggy and unusable. So which is where tiles come into the picture. So in one of the first sessions, I think in the August session, we had a session, or we had a talk by Dave where he explained how vector tiles are made and how they help. So yeah, if what we're going to do is we're going to show you actually how vector tiles are done. So now the thing is, the data that we're going to use over here is is a subset of the Pune tree census data that was done by the Pune Municipal Corporation back in 2018 or 2019, I believe. I have already gone ahead and uploaded this to Mapbox because this takes a while. So what it does is, if I say a new tile set, I can add my own data here. Then it will take that data, it will convert it into tiles, and then it'll serve it, and then it'll be made available to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this style set ID because I'm going to need it later. Uh, but at the same time, if you want to use this data, I've all of the data that we used today, I've already pushed it to a GitHub repository for GeoPune. I'll share the link for this in the chat. You can use this after the session whenever you want. All of this is open data anyway, so there's nothing to be worried about. All right. So, and the last thing is any data sets that you want to add in, which are smaller and which need not be tile sets, right? So we're going to go back into styles and we're going to say new style. So for today's session, what we're going to do is, since we're working with trees, we're going to try and put trees around the Veta degree area again. So we can choose a number of styles that are out there. We can choose certain variations, but I'm just going to choose the outdoors variation, right? Mainly because it has some elevation data already in place and some hillshades, which will make our map look nice. All right, so I'll just say customize outdoors. Okay, so this is the area that we'll primarily be working upon. As you can see, the style that it is by default given me certain contours and which designate elevation. I can do this to be able to even tilt the map a bit, but we'll get around to that a bit later. So what I'll do now is I'll just walk you through the interface, and then we'll upload our own tile set that or we'll add our own tile set that we uploaded a while ago. So if any map in Mapbox Studio, it's composed of, say, components and layers. So components are the different types of map features that we can see out here, which is, say, your buildings, your land and water, administrative boundaries, road network, and so on and so forth. So these are broad groups of data received from OSM. So if I just say road network, now this will consist of everything right from your motorways, your highways, your primary, secondary, tertiary roads, residential roads, and so on that have been grouped together as the road network. Similarly, you've got land and water and so on. The other thing is 3D, where you'll get, sorry, not 3D, the layers where you'll get to actually go to the details of each of these groupings. And the last is 3D if you want to play around with 3D. So we'll actually do that before we start, just so I can show you how awesome that is. So what I can do is I can enable 3D terrain over here. And immediately once that is done, you can see, right? So you get this subtle height variation that you can see on the hill. The other thing that I'm going to do is, and this exaggeration, if you want, I can improve so that it's a bit more high. Maybe I'll just enter, say, 5. It's even too high. So now you can see, right? So it's already used whatever contour information that's out there, and it's generated a 3D view of the hill. That is probably something that we're going to have to use, or we can use to our benefit. We can, so this is something that you can do. It's fine if you don't. It's basically telling you the position of the light and the color that is going to be. Keep it at white for now. Okay, 3D terrain we've done. The atmosphere is something that I really like. So you can see this little hazy background over here, right? So if I disable that, I'll just see the map box, the map straight up to the horizon. If I enable atmosphere, it'll just simulate some atmospheric effects. So if it's night, it might be different. I can choose the color of and so on and so forth. Right now, we don't really care about that because we're not going to look at the horizon, but this little fading effect looks nice. Now we're going to go back to layers. I'm just going to add a new layer over here. So now this is essentially what you get on a bare bones level of all of the data that I see available here. So for the source, I'm just going to choose the trees that we added, right? So these were the trees that we added prior to the session as a tile set. The moment I add it, you can see the number of trees that are there in the Veta area, right? So this is a forested area, and all of this area has been like a tree census has been done by the PMC, and it contains a lot of information about the trees, including the actual location of it, the size of the canopy, the height, the girth of uh, the trunk of the tree, and so on and so forth. Uh, so anyway, we'll use that to our advantage. So right now I'm happy with what this is. What I'll do is I'll choose a zoom extent. So because of the way that these tiles have done, it should be available at the most maximum possible zoom. So I'll say it's the minimum zoom level is 16, the maximum is 22. I'll keep it at that. Right. Type is where I can choose what kind of data type this particular layer is. So I'll just keep it as circle because it's the easiest to uh, work with. But you can use a symbol or heat map. What we're going to do is we're going to explore both of these options, and I'll show you how they look like. Right. So we'll keep it selected as circle for now, and then move on. So then we'll go to style. So by default, you can see that this is quite ugly, right? So all of the trees that are there, and here you can see the benefit of using a tile set. It's because this is, I think, around close to about 10,000 odd trees, maybe in this particular area. If I wanted to show this as a layer on top of my map, as say a GeoJSON, it would crash my browser, or it would just make it incredibly laggy. Because all of this data is being served as tiles, uh, that's why I'm able to just show it so fluently, and that my browser is just able to render all of this data without any hitch. So this is a very practical of use case of where vector tiles are useful, right? Uh, so what I'm going to do is, first thing is I want to change the size of each of these dots, right? It's all of these dots are of the same color, and what they're telling me is that every single tree looks exactly the same. Now we know for a fact that that's not the case, right? Every single tree is different. So let's try and do that. So what I'll do is I select radius. I'll say style across data range, uh, and I will say canopy diameter. Right. So now the canopy diameter varies from 0 to 26 meters. So what we'll say is, okay, let the 0 be 5 pixels in size, but let the maximum, let it be, say, 20. Now immediately you can see that the size of the dots have changed, right? Some are bigger, some are smaller, uh, right? So it's now styled my data according to the size of the canopy. This is more visible over here. If you can see that the range of the dots has automatically changed. And because it's a linear thing, so any value that lies in between, it will automatically style my data with. So now I'll choose my color, right? So now the color also, I may want to choose a bit differently. So I'll say that I'll style it across a data range. I want it to change according to the height, right? So say the minimum height is of 3 meters. I'll make it green, but I'll make it a darker green. And the ones that are tallest, make them of a much lighter green. So now if you can see all of the trees out there, I've been able to classify them not only based on the size of the canopy, but also how tall they are. Right. So immediately it gives you some sort of idea of what every single tree is about. Right. Some of these trees are very tall and they've got a large canopy, so then they're shown accordingly. So whenever you consume this in a web application, you can easily build a legend based on this, and then you're able to style this in a way that looks appealing as well. So there are certain providers out there, such as say Apple, which have taken it to a much higher level, where they've actually gotten icons for every single tree out there in certain areas of the world. But anyway, this is something that you can do to build your own tree map, right? So now, based on the data that you have now built something that is so much more visually appealing than just having a map that you're watching from top down, with a bunch of dots just saying that, okay, this is a tree, this is a tree, this is a tree, right? You've managed to actually show the different types of trees. I can play around it a bit more. I can add, say, a stroke to each tree, because right now all of these are blending together, but I don't really like the way it looks. So I'll just leave it like that because it looks like a painted forest, uh, or something of the same sort, right? I can adjust the opacity of uh, the trees if I want, so that they blend together a bit more. And then whenever I'm happy with the way that it looks, I can stop. Right. So then I can say I want to publish this, uh, and then I can just publish my map. So there are some warnings based on the changes that will happen if I push this to the SDK for Android and iOS, but I don't really care because that's not something that I'm worried about right now. So yeah, now I've published this. I can use this anywhere I want. I can then share the URL. I can give you a link over here. Right. So I just put it, or let me actually make it public so that you can uh, copy it for your own projects if you want. And I can make it available for you for a few days because obviously I don't want to get overcharged by Mapbox. I'm not able to paste this in the chat. I think I need some URL shortener. But anyway, I'll do that and I'll give it to you after a while. Uh, so yeah, those were the two things that I wanted to show you right now. The interesting thing about this Mapbox map that we made is it's essentially what you've made is a base map style with certain custom data that you've added on top of it. So you can use it in your own applications. Now you can use it uh, using any library. You can use it in QGIS. You can just import it as uh, whatever you want. So for example, if I go to third party and if I say it's like I want a WMTS, or if I want to import it in ArcGIS Online, it will give me all of the data that I would need to do that. If you want to put it in Tableau, even you'll be able to do that. And then you can just add it as a base map for your even your desktop projects, and then build your map from there. All right. So that is all that we had for today. Does anybody have any questions? All right. So thanks everyone for attending. I'll just give you the the GitHub repository where all of the data from today is stored. You can use this for your own projects. If you want to make forks of this or add it to your own repositories, please feel free. All of this is open data, like I said. So enjoy. And if you make, just as a reminder, our Discord server is online. So if you want to discuss anything, if you want to face any issue, or if you're facing any issues that you want solved, you can ask on that server. If you want to show any projects that you have, you can ask it on the server as well. If you're pushing any maps on social, please use the hashtag GeoPune uh, hashtag essentially to just to tag your map so that because you're a part of the community and we're proud of the people who form this community. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for attending this. This video will be available uh, at all times. Niket, it would be great to have you in the physical session. So next time around, in fact, in November, we're going to have a mapathon where we are going to collaborate, or we're planning to collaborate with some other communities in India uh, for mapping OSM. So this is going to be a physical workshop, and it's going to be a pretty interesting event. So please stay tuned and try to be available around the middle of November when we'll probably conduct this session. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you in November.